Rick Tocchet calls out the Canucks, including 5 or 6 passengers in their Game 4 loss to the Edmonton Oilers. We're going to break down these comments, what the Canucks need to do to change this lineup, and the players that Rick Tocchet were possibly talking about. We'll get into that later on this episode. Before we start, I just want to say to thousands of you watching that aren't subscribed, if you're enjoying this daily content on the Vancouver Canucks, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll be here all season long giving you updates from around the team. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Rick Tocchet calls out team. Now, obviously, there's just a fury of tweets and quotes from Rick Tocchet, and the first one from Thomas Drentz, shout out to him for putting these quotes on Twitter, said, "You can't win if you have 5, 6, or 7 passengers. It's playoff hockey. One of those guys can be the heroes for us next game, but they've got to step up." Obviously, this is Rick Tocchet just speaking on the team, how the team had so many passengers that felt like going into this game and during the game. He also continues on to say, "I'm not sure if they know it is the playoffs," and that was after he was talking about the 5 to 7 passengers. So when you do look at the box score, and just going to quickly go through this, the biggest thing with this is you can see a lot of guys playing around 10 minutes or less. You have guys obviously like Mikheyev, who I'm not going to talk too much about, but I will say that the 12 minutes might have been too much. Sam Lafferty was a guy that played under 10 minutes. Amen was a guy that played under 10 minutes. Carlson was a guy that played under 10 minutes. You look at the defensemen, obviously they once again struggle. A guy like Ian Colt struggled a bit. A guy like Noah Juleson gave up that 2-on-1. But just Griffin, what's your thoughts on his comments on just saying that the Canucks had just 5 to 7 guys that were kind of just getting cardio last night?
I think he's absolutely right. And I think when you look at the time on ice, that tells you all you need to know, really. Mikheyev may have gotten more minutes than maybe fans were expecting or wanting. But then if you look at those bottom ones in the time on ice, you can see where those passengers may or may not be that he is talking about. Clearly, something has to change. Guys have to step up. He said it best. It is the playoffs. You need to show up, especially when you're not on those top lines. It's the playoffs where unsung heroes can step up at any point. We've seen it with Shelovs. Now it's time for these AHL guys or these third and fourth line guys to really step it up and really make a case, make a name for themselves in the playoffs here.
Yeah, because that's the biggest thing. Going into the playoffs, we've seen Tocchet say, hey, we want 3 lines. Depth wins playoffs, depth wins games. He wanted to have this lineup of 4 lines that can contribute, but it seems like it really got down to just the 2 lines. I mean, you've seen Dakota Joshua, who, in my opinion, has been outstanding. Connor Garland was a guy that, in my opinion, was the best Canuck going into the game last night and coming out of the game. Just overall, there was guys that showed effort, especially that third line of Elias Lindholm, Garland, Dakota Joshua, but there was a lot that didn't look great and a lot that does need to be changed. Like you said here, it's just a lot of passengers, just 5 to 7 guys, and that brings us into the second topic, which is will is skill. So the big thing is this is we've seen even more quotes come out from Rick Tocchet. The first one being, we need to get some guys going. You can't win with only 12 guys. And he continues on to say, not good enough. They know that about the power play. And just Griffin, what's your thoughts on his comments on those as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely need to get some guys going. Pettersson being one of them. We didn't see him do a whole lot in game 4. He definitely needs to step up and get back on the score sheet. We need to see some other guys step up. You know, we've talked about Mikheyev, and then you see Sam Lafferty too. He's got this speed. We got to see it utilized. It can't just be Connor Garland speeding around out there. Like we saw in game 4, it seemed like Shelovs and Garland were the ones that were trying to win the game for the Canucks. You can't just be relying on 2 guys like that, especially against a team that's as fast as Edmonton. So you need more speedy guys, and you need these big body guys to really step up. You know, Zadorov, he was absent in last game. He might have been a little bit scared because of the suspension to Susie. It's understandable that they were playing a bit more conservative. Edmonton wasn't playing as physical either. But now that we're going back to Vancouver for game 5, you want to see these big body guys really set the tone early and see these quick guys really get on the puck and just make chances for these Canucks.
Yeah, because the big thing is you look at these lineups, and like he was saying, the passengers, just people need to get going. The biggest thing with this is, and the 2 lines I want to focus on, was the second line you can see on your screen of Mikheyev, Pettersson, and Sam Lafferty. Then you see on the bottom line Carlson, Bluger, Amon. These guys haven't been producing. These guys haven't been doing what Tocchet needs. They haven't been going on the score sheets. They haven't been defensively sound. Yes, you have guys like Pettersson, who has been good defensively, but they haven't been doing what they need to do to win this. And just Griffin, what's your thoughts on this line? And what would you change going into game 5 out of this entire just top 9?
I think I would see a bit more change up than maybe people are expecting Tocchet to make. He hasn't been making any drastic changes to his lineup so far the postseason. He's been making one or two here and there. But when you have it, when you're a coach who's as focused on things like depth, like Tocchet is, you want to be able to have that freedom to move around these lines as much as you want. And with that, that's why I think if you bring back the Lotto line for the entire game, have Boeser, Miller, and Pettersson just run that entire game. We saw how efficient it was for Edmonton doing that with Draisaitl, McDavid, and Hyman. Do that with those three. Then on the second line, don't touch it. Or the Lindholm line, don't touch it. Leave it the way it is. Those guys are clicking on all cylinders. The chemistry is great. The Suter line, I would do Lafferty, Suter, and bring in Jonathan Lekkerimäki. We've been dying to see him in a Canucks uniform. We want to see it happen, especially on the power play. He will make things happen, and it would be a great thing for the fans who have been dying to see him as well. On the Bluger line, I would put Linus Karlsson, he did take that penalty, but he has shown a bit of promise in the little playoff experience he's been having. Then Teddy Bluger, Niels Hoglander, bring him back in. He did miss last game after having a few disappointing games, but where Vancouver's really lacking right now, he could have a redemption game. Then on the defensive side, I wouldn't change too much, but yeah, run Hughes and Tyler Myers, Susie and Hronek, Zadorov and Juleson. Then I would have a special big body defensive line with Zadorov and Myers because those guys have been a problem for Vancouver this series. We saw Myers draw the penalty to Evander Kane. So it'd be really nice to see those big bodies really get in their heads and get physical, especially with Susie coming back with a guy like Hronek who loves to talk smack. We saw him talk smack before the end of the season with telling guys that they're going to be on vacation soon. So it'd be really nice to see those big body guys. And Juleson, I think he had just that one mistake with laying in that hit. It was a great hit, but it was costly. I think he'll definitely be able to shape that up.
Yeah, because the big thing is like just looking at the forwards line, I think Hoglander has to come back in. He was just outstanding during the season. We've seen him in the bottom six for the Canucks to start the first half of the year and majority of the year. And he scored almost 20 goals in the bottom six. If you need a guy that's going to get this bottom six, maybe the fourth line, if the third line, if you want to move this Lindholm line up, he's the guy that's going to get the scoring going. I've really liked the thought of just getting Jonathan Lekkerimäki into this lineup. This was a guy that I watched a lot of. If you guys were fans of the channel and been subscribed to this channel for a little bit, you know that I talk about Lekkerimäki quite a bit. He played for Abro in the SHL in the Tier 1 league. This guy was dominant offensively on the power play. One of the scouts going into the draft for Lekkerimäki said, get him the puck on the man advantage, something will happen. The Canucks and Tocchet have been saying how the power play has been struggling. So getting in a guy, yes, he's a rookie, yes, he might be a bit raw, but you need to try whatever it takes to get this power play going. I mean, if you're fine with getting Karlsson into the game, maybe a guy like Lekkerimäki can come in, produce offense. You don't even need to put him in the top six, maybe it's the middle six, bottom six. Use him on the special teams on the power play. Something needs to give. They need to try more things. Guys like Mikheyev, I think either needs to be on the fourth line or scratch for a game. A guy like Sam Lafferty, like you were saying, hasn't been producing. This guy might have to come out of the lineup as well. The Canucks need to make changes. Yes, they've had close games 3-2. They've won games, they've won close games, they've won big games, but they need to get something going, whatever it takes to get Pettersson maybe putting another Swede on the line just to get his momentum going, whatever it takes defensively. I agree with everything you said. I think it's perfect to keep a guy like Juleson, and I think Ian Cole has to be a guy that needs a break, maybe come out, get his head together, bring back a guy like Susie into the lineup. Ian Cole, it feels like, is the leading scorer for the Edmonton Oilers with all the pucks that either go in off him or go in while he's on the ice. So things are going to change. And do you have any final remarks on what Tocchet said or just the lines in general?
I think we covered a lot of the bases too with that defensive line. You do want to see Ian Cole get a bit of a break. Like we've said, he's been pretty much a liability for Vancouver this series. He's had a lot of pucks go off of him. We were able to get revenge on one last night, bouncing one off of Edmonton. But yeah, it would be nice to see him get a break. And like you said, with Lekkerimäki and Pettersson, who knows? Maybe two Swedes do blend well. Pettersson was back for a little bit, but he was missing again. He has been missing for most of this postseason, and definitely needs to get back into his scoring routine. But again, I think going back to Vancouver, we have the home crowd with us. We've been better on the road than at home in the playoffs, but I think with this game being as high strung as it is, with the tensions being high, the fans are going to be loud. It's going to be an intense game 5, and I can't wait to see what line changes come about and what Vancouver does to adjust.
Yeah, no, because I know the biggest thing we've always talked about making line changes, just tweaking things. But with Tocchet publicly calling out the team, saying they had the passengers, we might even see a guy like Archie Baines get into this lineup that did have a stint with the Canucks. I was saying before we recorded, the Canucks need power play, they need scoring. Guess who would be perfect for this? Phil Kessel, who they failed to sign on trade deadline day. They had him in the system practicing with the teams, didn't sign him. I mean, that's the rest is history. But I mean, Phil would have fit perfectly in with this. And just what's your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on Tocchett's what he said? What's your thoughts on changing the lines? Let us know down in the comments. And with that, we'll get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And the comment of the day comes from Jin Kim. He says, Seelovs is playing amazing. I'm an Oilers fan too. I think this is the first nice Oilers fan that has commented on the video. It doesn't feel like there has been a lot, which is fine. I mean, just go throwing shade back and forth is just awesome between two fan bases. Obviously, you need to keep it PG, but the chirping's fun. We love it. I'm sure the Oilers fans love it too. Game 5 is going to be huge, but if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down and leave a like, a comment, subscribe. If you comment, you could be featured on the next episode of Canucks Digest as the comment of the day, but I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Griffin. Have a good one.